Hello everyone and welcome to Momentum channel. My name is Mo, and in this video we're going to talk about the four top exchange traded funds here in Canada for investors who are interested to invest in Canadian banks. Instead of going and picking each or every Canadian bank stock, there is an easy way for you to invest in these quality exchange traded funds that allows you more exposure to various banks at a much cheaper prices, and for all of that for a very low management expense ratio. Of these four exchange traded funds that we are going to introduce, three of them do pay their dividends on a monthly basis, which is quite interesting, and there's one of them that paid their dividend on a quarterly basis. And for the most part, their dividend yield is more than 3.5%. And stay tuned, because one of them and their dividend yield is actually going to surprise you in terms of their amount. So let's get into this video. The first exchange traded fund that we want to introduce here is called ZEB, or BMO Equal Weight Banks Index ETF. As the name suggests, this ETF gives equal weightage to the major banks that they have in their portfolio, and this consists of the major Canadian banks. If you look at the holdings here, you'd notice that we have Bank of Nova Scotia, we have Bank of Montreal, we have Toronto Dominion Bank, Canadian Imperial Bank, CIBC, Royal Bank of Canada, and National Bank of Canada. And for the most part, the weightage, you would see it's fairly similar amounts. So instead of going and buying each one of these bank stocks separately, and for the most part, their stock price is higher than the price that you're going to pay for this ETF, here easily you get exposure to all these banks, and for a more diversified approach. This ETF with the ticker symbol ZEB has about $1.5 billion assets under management as of February 8th, 2021. As I mentioned, it is offered in Canadian dollars, and the last trading price for that was $29.91. So just under $30 Canadian, fairly decent price and easy to get into this. In terms of the distribution, as I indicated, this ETF does pay a monthly distribution, or aka almost like a dividend, and these distributions with an annualized yield is showing to be 4.14%, so slightly over 4%, which is quite decent. In terms of risk rating, this ZEB ETF has a medium level of risks, and it is not complete if we do not talk about the fees. So what is the fee that you're paying for actually having this exchange traded funds? The fee or management expense ratio is 0.61%. It is slightly higher than the typical low cost fee for exchange traded funds, but keep in mind here you're getting exposure to quality banks, and as a result you're paying that a little bit extra premium. All right, let us take a look at the past price and performance. Although the past performance is not guaranteed for future, but I think it can also give you good information of how this ETF has performed over the past several time frames. In terms of annualized performance, for the past 1 year, it has shown a 2.87% return, annualized return of 5% plus for the past 2 years, 3-year annualized return of 2.71%, 5-year annualized return of 10.59%, and 9.33% annualized return for the past 10 years. And since inception of this ETF, it is showing an annualized return of 9.84%. So you might be noticing that the past 2 year or 3 year, the return has not been the greatest. Now, granted, the banks have had a little bit of difficult times over the past several years. So that definitely has been reflected in terms of the return. But what you notice is that, of course, longer term, and if you stick with these ETF for longer term, you're gonna see the benefits that the annualized return since inception has been very decent, close to 10%. Now let us move on and take a look at the second exchange traded fund that we want to introduce. This one is offered by CI First Asset with the ticker symbol CIC. The objectives of these funds are to provide their shareholders with quarterly distribution. So unlike the previous one that we talked about, or ZEB, here your distributions are paid on a quarterly basis. The last trading price for CIC was at $10.72. This is a smaller ETF in terms of assets under management. Here we have $160 million assets under management. If you look at the performance of CIC over the past time frame, 1 month return of 2.65%, 1 year return of 1.64%, 2 years annualized return of 7.68%, 3 years annualized return of 1.81%, and the annualized return since inception is 8.25%. The objective of this fund as well are for investors to get equal exposure to Canada's 6 largest banks. So if we look at the holdings here under management, similar to ZEB, here we have more or less same weightage exposure to the banks: Toronto Dominion Bank, RBC, Bank of Nova Scotia, National Bank of Canada, CIBC, and Bank of Montreal. In terms of management fee, we are looking at the management fee of 0.65%. Now, if you look at the current dividend yield for CIC, it is showing to be at 4.58%, which is quite decent. All right, let us move on and take a look at the third best top ETF for Canadian banks. Here we have RBNK, and this is one of my favorites, the one that I have been investing in for sure, and I do have it in my portfolio. Ticker symbol RBNK is offered by Royal Bank of Canada. The last trading price for that was $20.81. If we look at the 52-week high price was at $21.25, and the 52-week low price was $12.69. This fund and ETF does pay its distribution on a monthly basis, and does charge a fee of 0.32%. So a slightly lower fee compared to the other ones. In terms of the risk rating, it has a medium to high risk rating. If you look at the performance, you notice that the year-to-date return has been 0.4%, 1 month return of 0.4%, the 1 year return of 2.9%, annualized 3-year return of 2.8%, and the annualized return since inception has been 4.2%. Now, this fund hasn't been open for that long. You notice it actually started back in 2018, and as a result of that, it hasn't been there for such a long time as the other ones that we talked about, and hence hasn't been able to really take advantage of those better, more profitable years for the Canadian banks. So keep that in mind. So that's probably one of the reasons that the annualized return since inception is lower compared to the other ETFs. So take that with a grain of salt. I do feel that this is definitely a great ETF, especially given the fact that their management expense ratio is quite low. If you look at the holdings, which I think would be of your interest, you notice here that the balance are different. It's not equal weightage. So there's more weightage given to CIBC Bank, followed by Bank of Nova Scotia. Both of them, the two of these banks almost account for half of the value of these ETF holdings, followed by TD, Bank of Montreal, and then a smaller portion allocated to Royal Bank of Canada, and then followed by National Bank of Canada. These are the top 6 holdings in this ETF. Now, last but not least, the iShares Equal Weight Bank and Life Co ETF. The name suggests equal weight. Ticker symbol is CEW. The last trading price was $13.41. And the year-to-date return for this one is 4.86%. Let's take a look at the broader returns. Annualized return for 3-year has been 2.89%, annualized 5-year return of 9.71%, and annualized 10-year return of 8.90%, as well as the annualized return since inception has been 7.5%. Some key facts about this one. In terms of net assets under management, we are looking at $165 million. It's fairly small compared to ZEB. It is available on the Toronto Stock Exchange. As for our distribution yield, we are looking at 3.76% distribution yield, and it is paid on a monthly basis. Now, if you look at the fees for this fund, the management expense ratio is at 0.60%, and it is showing a medium level of risk. Lastly, if you look at the holdings, here we have a larger number of holdings. In fact, we have 10 holdings as a whole. It's not just for bank. It includes some other non-major banks as part of its holding, including IA Financial. We have Manulife Financial, Canadian Imperial Bank, Toronto Dominion Bank, Sun Life Financial, Bank of Nova Scotia, Great West Life, Bank of Montreal, Royal Bank, and National Bank of Canada. So it gives you a little bit more exposure to some other financial institutions in Canada and not just the major 6 banks. There you have it, folks. Here we had the top 4 exchange-traded funds that Canadian investors might be interested to invest in. That gives you exposure to major Canadian banks. And as we saw for the last one, it also can provide you some exposure to some other financial institutions here in Canada. Are you invested in any of these exchange traded funds, or perhaps separately on Canadian bank stocks? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you have come across any other exchange traded funds that you're looking into, I would love to hear from you as well in the comment section down below. By the way, if you're new to investing and haven't opened an account and are interested to buy any of these exchange traded funds, an easy way to do so is by opening an account with a brokerage firm here in Canada. The one that I would recommend is Wealthsimple Trade. It offers you the option to actually buy Canadian stocks or Canadian exchange traded funds like the ones that we talked about for free at no cost. You're not going to pay any cost when you buy or sell your stock. So it's an easy way to actually start investing. If you are into dividend investing and looking for exposure to dividend stocks or dividend ETFs, I think these options that we talked about in this video would be of your interest. I hope you found this video beneficial and you gained something of value from it. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit from the video as well. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Momentum channel. Here in Momentum, we post weekly videos about stock market investing, exchange traded funds, finances, and financial planning. Thank you guys, and I hope to see you next time.